Okay, welcome back for another fun-filled session with math. In this lecture video, we are going to talk about multiplication and division with mixed numbers. Mixed numbers can be very scary to look at, but if you remember the one simple step, which is always convert your mixed number to an improper fraction before you do any multiplying or dividing, you should be good to go. So what we're going to do is first we're going to look at multiplying with mixed numbers, where we are going to go ahead and convert our mixed numbers into improper fractions and then apply straight good old-fashioned multiplication or division rules. Okay? So remember, when multiplying, the first thing you want to do after you have two improper fractions is you want to look and see if they can reduce. So I have 5 times 3 3/4. So the first thing I need to do is I need to look at this 3 3/4 and I need to turn that into an improper fraction. So remember, to do that says you're going to take the bottom times the big number plus the top, put it in the top, keep the bottom the same. So I'm going to do just that. So I'm going to take the bottom, so my 4, times the big number, 3, plus the top number, 3. Notice I put it in the top, keep the bottom the same. Now I'm going to actually do the math. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 gives me 15, and 4 on the bottom. Once I've done that, I can rewrite my problem. So this is really going to be 5 times, and this is 15 over 4. Now, one of the things that I have to remember here is I have to remember that when you're dealing with a whole number, we can think of it as a fraction by simply putting it over 1. Now, to multiply says I am going to look at 5 over 1, 5 over 4, 15 over 4, 15 over 1. And my question is, does any of that reduce? In this situation, no, it doesn't. So in order to multiply, says I go straight across the top. So this is 5 times 15, and straight across the bottom, 1 times 4. And then in this instance, this is going to give me 75 over 4. Now, the last thing that the problem says is it wants you to write all solutions in mixed numbers, which means once you get your improper fraction, now we need to convert it back again. So if you remember if you follow me or have been watching from previous sessions, you know the top goes inside your division, the bottom goes on the outside, and you do good old-fashioned long division in order to find your mixed number. So here we're going to go ahead and do, how many times does 4 go into 7? Well, it only goes in once. I have to subtract my 4 away, leaves me with a 3. I have to pull down the 5, and now I need to find out how many times 4 goes into 35. Well, it goes into 35 8 times. I'm going to subtract away my 32, leaves me with 3. So if you remember, this number on top is going to be your new big number. My 4 here is going to remain the bottom of my fraction. And my remainder here is going to be the new top number. So in other words, this mixed number is going to be 18 and 3 over 4. And that would be my answer. Okay. So let's play around and do it again. So here in this one, again, now I have two mixed numbers. So if I'm looking at 2 3/10, I'm going to create my fraction. So I'm going to do the bottom. So 10 times the big number, 2 plus 3, put it over the bottom. So this is going to be the same as 10 times 2, which is 20, plus 3 is a 23 over 10, and there's my mixed number. Now I need to do the other. I have 4 and 2/5. So I'm again going to create my fraction. So I've got the bottom, so that's 5 times the big number, 4, plus the top. Leave the denominator alone. So 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22 over 5. So now I need to rewrite my fractions. So 2 and 3/10 was the same as 23 over 10. And I'm going to multiply that by 4 and 2/5, which was 22 over 5. To do that, I can go ahead and look, and right here 10 and 22 will reduce. I can divide a 2 out of both of those. Leaves me with 5 on the bottom here and 11 on the top, thus making my new fractions. 23 over 5 times 11 over 5. The last thing I need to do is multiply straight across the top. So here 23 times 11 is going to give me 253, and then 5 times 5 is 25. Again, last but not least, I need to go ahead and do my long division. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to set it up. So here we go. I've got my 253 goes inside, my 25 on the outside. So I have, how many times does 25 go into 2? Well, it doesn't. How many times does it go into 25? That would be once. Subtract out my 25, leaves me with 0. Bring down my 3. How many times does 25 go into 3? It doesn't. So this is a 0. Again, we now have a new big number, which is 10. My new top is going to be my remainder, so this is 3 and over 25. And that would be my new result. Okay? Alright, now let's look at one that's a little more complicated, because in this time we've got 3 of them. So here we're going to do the same thing. We are going to convert our mixed numbers into improper fractions. So I have 11 and 1/3. So again, bottom times the big number plus 1. So bottom times big number is 33 plus 1 is 34. Leave the denominator alone. I then have 3 and 5/8. So 3 times 5, 8 times 3 is going to be 24, plus 5 gives you 29 over 8. So here what I really have is I have 21 times 34 over 3 times 29 over 8. Now, I need to remember my whole number is the same as over 1. This is going to be the exact same as if you were dealing with 2 fractions, only now we've just got 3 of them to work with. So you just simply start trying to simplify. First thing, I know that these 2 can reduce down, so the 3 can go away and the 21 becomes a 7. So that's going to turn this into 7 over 1 times 34 over 1 times 29 over 8. Now the other thing that we can look at is we can look, because both of these are even, it means I know for a fact that they at least can be divided by 2. So my 34 and 8 will change. Take a 2 out of 8, you leave 4 behind. Take a 2 out of 34, and you're going to leave 17 behind, making this 7 over 1 times 17 over 1 times 29 over 4. And in this case, there's nothing else that I can do, so you'll go ahead and multiply that straight across. So here you're going to have 7 times 17 times 29 all over 1 times 4, which gives you the improper fraction 3,451 over 4. Now again, we had to do a mixed number, so we can set up our long division. So the numerator, 3,451, goes underneath. The denominator goes out front. 4 goes into 34 8 times. Subtract out my 32. Leaves me with 2, and I'm going to carry down just the 5. Leave the 1 alone. 4 goes into 25 6 times. Subtract out that 24. Leaves me with 1. Now I can carry down the 1. Leaves me with 11. 4 goes into 11 twice. I'm going to subtract an 8, and that leaves me with 3. So again, just like before, this whole number here is going to be your big number. This one here is still going to be the bottom. And the 3 is going to be your new top, which means the mixed number that we actually have is 862 and 3/4, and that was what we were looking for. So those are 3 different examples of multiplying with your mixed numbers. Now we're going to look at a quick example of dividing. Now if you remember, when you divide with fractions, you have to change it by multiplying by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Well, this is no different. The only thing that's different here is before we can do the reciprocal part, we have to change our fractions into improper fractions. So I have 4 3/8. So my 4 3/8 will change. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 3 gives me 35 over 8. And then I have 2 5/6. So 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 gives you 17 over 6. So when we're looking at this, what do we actually have? Well, we have 35 over 8. We're dividing that by 17 over 6. So now we're going to follow our multiplying rules, which say keep the first, 35 over 8, change to multiplication, flip the reciprocal, 6 over 17. First thing that I'm going to look at is I have these 2 evens here. So I know 6 and 8 can reduce. I can divide a 2 out of both, leaves a 3 on top and a 4 on bottom, thus making my new fraction 35 over 4 times 3 over 17. And if I look at that, nothing else is going to happen, so I'm going to go straight across the top and straight across the bottom, which tells me I have an improper fraction of 105 all over 68. So now I need to change that to a mixed number. So I'm going to go ahead and divide. 105 goes in, 68 goes out. And in this case, I have how many times does 68 go in 105? Well, that's once. Subtract out my 68, and I am left with 37. Therefore, my mixed number is going to be 1 and 37 over 68. So not all of your fractions are going to look pretty. Some of them are going to look relatively ugly. Okay? Let's do it again. I have 3 and 3/8. So 3 and 3/8 is going to become 8 times 3 is 24, plus 3 gives you 27 over 8. So I need to rewrite it. I have 27 over 8 divided by 3. Again, follow the rule. Keep the first. 27 over 8. Change to multiplication and flip the reciprocal. 1 over 3. When I look at this, I see that 27 and 3 can easily reduce. I can pull a 3 out of both. When I pull a 3 out of 27, I get 9 left behind. Means my fractions become 9 over 8 times 1 over 1. In other words, I have 9 over 8 as my improper. So in this case, I have to again set up my long division. So I'm going to do just that. 9 goes in, 8 goes out. 8 can go into 9 once. Subtract your 8, leaves you with 1. So you have a mixed number of 1 and 1/8. Okay. So division. Alright, the last thing that I want to kind of touch base on is some applications with these mixed numbers. Now these concepts are going to be the same as if you just had straight multiplication or division with fractions. There really is not a lot of difference there. And so here what we have is a new formula that needs to be kept in mind, and this is the new formula here where we are talking about area either of a square or a triangle. So those formulas are the area of a square is length times width, and the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And in case you can't see that, your area of a triangle is going to be 1/2 base times height. Okay. So here what it says is Emily seeds lawns for Sam Superior Lawn Care. When she walks at a rapid pace, the wheel on the broadcast spreader completes 150 2/3 revolutions per minute. The question says, how many revolutions does the wheel complete in 15 minutes? So I have 150 2/3. So the first thing I want to do is I want to convert that into its improper fraction. So 150 times 3 plus 2 is going to give you 452 over 3. And now what we need to know is that we are going to look at revolutions per minute times the number of minutes. That is essentially what we're doing. So we have 452 over 3 revolutions per minute, and we are going to multiply that by the 15 minutes it takes. So again, we need to remember, because it's a whole number, that it's over 1. And the first thing we can do here is we can look at where we reduce. So here we have that 3 and 15 reduce. 3 goes away and becomes a 1. 15 goes away and becomes a 5. And so here we can rewrite it. We now have 452 over 1 times 5 over 1. And this is going to give you 2,260 revolutions. Okay? A sidewalk along a garden at the conservatory is to be 14 2/3 yards long. A rectangular stone tiles that are each 1 1/8 yard long are used to form the sidewalk. How many tiles are used? So here, when we're looking at part to whole, we have, this is going to be your whole, and this is going to be your part. And so again, what you have to remember is that in this problem, we are actually going to be working with whole divided by the part. So in this case, I have 14 2/5 that I'm going to divide by 1 1/8. Well, I need to translate both of these into improper fractions. So if I look at the first one, I have 14 times 5 plus 2 gives you 72 over 5. I am still dividing. 8 times 1 is 8 plus 1 is 9 over 8, and thus I have completed. So now I need to go ahead and apply my division rule, which says keep the first, so 75 over 5, change the sign, flip the second. So now this is 8 over 9. I don't know why I wrote 75. Sorry about that. So this is 72. So you can see I caught myself because I knew that this here should have divided out, and I double checked myself as I was going. So please make sure when you're doing your work that you're double checking yourself as you go. 9 goes into 72 9 times. When that does, 8 spits out. So this is going to leave us with 8 over 5 times 8 over 1, which gives us 64 over 5. However, because we want to know how many tiles, we need to convert this to a mixed number. So we're going to create our division, put the 64 inside, 5 on the outside. 5 goes into 6 once, minus 5 leaves us with 1, carry down the 4. 5 goes into 4 twice, minus 10 leaves us with 4. So this means we have 12 4/5 tiles. Okay. This next one is a multi-part one, and it has a little bit of relation to those of you who drive. And it says you're planning a trip of 615 miles round trip, and you know that your car gets an average of 27 1/3 miles per gallon of gas. You also know that your gas tank holds 15 1/2 gallons of gas. The first question says, how many gallons of gas will you use on this trip? Well, to do that means you have to identify the whole and the part. So here, the whole is talking about the miles of the trip. So in that case, this is going to be 615. The part is talking about your miles per gallon. So in this case, that's going to be 27 1/3. Okay, that's what we know. So we have 615 divided by 27 1/3. So I got to change 27 1/3 to a mixed number. So this is 615 divided by 27 times 3 plus 1 gives me 82. Keep the denominator the same. And so here I'm going to go ahead and keep the first. So this is 615. Change the sign to multiplication. Flip the reciprocal of the second. 3 over 82. Remember, since this is a whole number, it's over 1. And then in this case, 615 and 82 will reduce with each other. So what I can do is 615 becomes 15 and 82 becomes a 2. Thus changing my fraction to being 15 over 1 times 3 over 2, which is actually the same as 45 over 2. Now we obviously need to change that, so we would go ahead and do our long division. 45 goes in, 2 goes out. 2 goes into 4 twice, minus 4 gives us a 0. Carry down the 5. 2 goes into 5 twice, minus 4 gives us 1. So then we actually then have 22 and 1/2 gallons on that trip. Okay. Now the second part says, if the gas you buy costs $2 per gallon, then how much should you plan to spend on this trip for gas? So here, this is now going to be a multiplication, because I am going to use 22 and 1/2 gallons, and I need to multiply that by $2 per gallon. Well, I already know my improper fraction here because I got it from the first problem. So this is really going to be 45 over 2 times 2, which means, if you look at it, my 2 and 2 are going to disappear. They reduce with each other and turn into 1. Thus, you end up with $45. Now, the last thing we have is a rectangle problem. So a rectangle is 7 5/8 inches by 9 3/4 inches. What is the area? So area is length times width. So we're telling you that you have 7 5/8 by 9 3/4. So my area here is going to be 7 5/8 times 9 3/4. I need to change both of these into improper fractions. So this is 8 times 7 plus 5 gives me 61 over 8. And I'm multiplying that. 9 times 4 plus 3 gives me 39 over 4. In this case, we can go ahead and multiply. So this is going to give us 2379 over 32. And I can go ahead and do my long division. So 2379 goes in, 32 goes out. 32 goes into 237 7 times. I'm going to subtract away 224. When I do that, I'm left with 13. Carry down the 9. 32 goes into 9 4 times. I'm going to subtract out 128. When I do that, I get 11 back. Since 11 is less than 32, I know I'm done. And so here, this is going to be 74 and 11 over 32 inches squared. Okay. So, in a nutshell, that is everything that you need to know about being able to do multiplication and division with mixed numbers. If you have any questions, please be sure to let me know. Otherwise, remember, math really is bananas. So just keep smiling, ask tons of questions, and have lots of fun with your math. And as always, I'll see you next time.